You're listening to CBS Sports Radio. We are all sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Strong opinions and your phone calls. Expect it here. CBS Sports Radio.
The Armchair Quarterbacks on YouTube Live. SEC, ACC, and Big Ten coverage like no other. Subscribe and like us today. Your first choice for sports talk live from the First Coast.
Hey, Jacksonville, winter is the perfect time to start planning for your healthy, pest-free spring lawn with True Green, America's #1 lawn care company. True Green's science-based approach and local expertise will help give your lawn the year-round care it needs to be thick and weed-free. Go to truegreen.com/radio to save 50% on your first service. Just call 866-946-5956 or go to truegreen.com/radio today and get a lawn to be proud of.
Get your Sunday football morning started off right with the Handicappers on Armchair Quarterbacks YouTube, 10 a.m. Eastern to noon Eastern. Your Sunday morning kickoff show where we tackle your NFL lines out in the desert. A 61.2% win rate over the last 6 years. Against the spread, over, under, money line, you name it. And we dive into the world of fantasy football year-long and your DFS payouts. We're only true Southern football kickoff show that talks the spreads in Vegas, your DFS and fantasy, and your year-long quest to win that fantasy football championship. Only on the Armchair Quarterbacks YouTube channel. It's the Handicappers on Armchair Quarterbacks YouTube, 10 a.m. Eastern to noon Eastern. Sundays, all NFL season long.
At Jewelers Mutual, we're a little obsessed with jewelry. Obsessed like auctioneers with talking fast.
50, we're going to hit sold.
Pop stars with auto-tune.
Yeah.
And dentists with asking questions.
So, how did he propose?
After they put their hands in your mouth.
What?
Great.
Yes, we've made jewelry our obsession for over 100 years. We love it so much, we named our kids Ruby, Amber, and Opal.
Venti soy latte for Opal?
At Jewelers Mutual, we insure jewelry and only jewelry, which is why people who are also obsessed with jewelry trust us with theirs.
Saturday mornings, 8:30 Eastern. Dixie Football Nation is back and better than ever. We've got Tony Agolini, Matt Carr, Tones Ariola, Bobby and Angelo, along with Mac McGee this fall. Dixie Football Nation heads to the gridiron, talking ACC, SEC, the Big Ten, and all the big games throughout the college football land. That's Dixie Football Nation, 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central, Saturday mornings on the Armchair Quarterback Show's YouTube channel, going live. Or catch the instant replay.
Take the road less traveled in the newly redesigned Hyundai Santa Fe. With available H-Track all-wheel drive to help you get off the beaten path a little further together. And intuitive safety features that can help you see what's waiting around the bend. Plus, with generous room for 5 and comfortable available Napa leather seating, you can go for more drives as a family without driving each other crazy. Find new adventures together in the Hyundai Santa Fe.
I'm Amy Lawrence, and I'm up late, always, after hours, hanging out with you on CBS Sports Radio. Check it out, 2 a.m. Eastern, 11 p.m. Pacific.
Take me out to the ball game.
Get caught up with the big stories from around the world in sports.
Hyperbole is done. Now we can finally play the game. It is the third Saturday in October, and the show is on one more time in Knoxville, Tennessee.
We are live in Tallahassee, the capital of the great state of Florida.
There's no law against scalping tickets in this part of the country, and premium prices have been paid. That's Desmond Howard going in motion on 2nd down and 5 for Michigan, playing on real grass at Michigan Stadium. Throw it to the sideline. It is intercepted. Florida State was sitting and waiting for it, and Terrell Buckley has scored a touchdown. How do you do?
56-yarder. Does not have the leg. And Chris Davis takes it in the back of the end zone. He'll run it out to the 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 45. There goes Davis. Oh, my God. Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game. Auburn's going to win the football game.
They're still in deep trouble in midfield. They tackle him. The ball is still loose as they get it to Rogers. They give it back now to the 30. They're down to the 20. Oh, the band is out on the field. He's going to go into the end zone. He's going into the end zone. But the bands are out on the field. There were flags all over the place. The most amazing, sensational, dramatic, heart-rending, exciting, thrilling finish in the history of college football. California.
In trouble in the backfield, wants to throw now, and he's going to go deep. And I mean deep, and I mean touchdown, Florida! Tyree Cleveland in a miracle finish. A Hail Mary that's full of grace for the Gators.
Barkley trying to bounce it. And does escape. Saquon Barkley in the clear. Still got it. Saquon Barkley all the way to the end zone. Electric. 79 yards.
It's a 31-30 game, and what does Nebraska do?
I have not seen the kicker come on the field, and I don't think he's coming on the field. Tom Osborne made this decision a long time ago. He's decided to go for two and take his shot and win, and I commend him for it.
This is for the national championship for Nebraska.
And if in 48 seconds they become the winner, they certainly deserve to be national champions.
Here come the Seminoles of Florida State, one of the great traditions in college football, and this becoming one of the nation's favorite rivalries. It's a battle for flagging rights and recruiting advantages in the state of Florida as the Gators come calling, and Chief Osceola ready to get it started. College football. A matchup from the state of Florida. It's the Gators against the Seminoles on an overcast day in Tallahassee.
Moody flush, throws it down. Caught by Boston College. I don't believe it.
Today, we've got number 1 Seminoles against number 2 Hurricanes. They meet in the capital city of Tallahassee.
Good morning. There I am. Sorry.
You're good.
Trying to do too many things at once. Bobby, how the hell are you this morning, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am ready for some college football. Got a lot of things going on with the world of baseball and college football colliding at the same time. But I'm ready for both. I'm ready for some exciting ball games. We'll probably get started with Tennessee, Florida. Tony's going to try to join us. He's got some things going on, so we're not sure if he's going to make it or not, but Angela will be with us at the top of the hour. But I didn't want to put it off, so let's go ahead and dive into Florida, Tennessee, and then if he's able to join us, we'll kind of going to retrace our steps, so to speak. That game starts off at 7:00 tonight. First of all, where do you have plans to watch that one at?
I'm probably just going to be at home enjoying the game, honestly. I might watch it with my mom because she's also a Florida fan. And really, I don't have anything crazy going on. I'll probably be trash talking my Tennessee friend, though.
Is she from Florida? That's how this all came about, right?
Yeah. I was born in Florida. I lived in Tampa for about 3 years, and then we moved up there. But my mom, she was born there, moved away for a while, then came back, and then that's where I was born.
Gotcha. Okay. So you have a lot of friends that probably aren't real happy with you this week of the year, right?
Not terribly, no. But a lot of them have gotten to the point where they just kind of, or they just don't really care anymore. You're kind of used to it almost. So
yeah, I'd say anyone, especially your age, they don't even remember the years where it would go back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
It's been so long. I was looking at it. I think it was yesterday, and every year when this comes up, I don't know why I'm shocked because I ought to have it memorized by now. But it's been since 2003 that Tennessee has gone into the swamp and won.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just absurd for us to continue to call this a rivalry
mm-hmm.
when the opposing team can't win in the other team's own home field. It was kind of look when Florida State and Bowden Spurrier used to go at it. Spurrier never won in Tallahassee his entire career.
Mm-hmm.
But he still had some big wins at home in Gainesville, so it kind of evened it out a little bit. Bowden won several times in Gainesville, so he had a dominant record over Spurrier, but you never had the feeling, not to mention that games were usually close, you never had the feeling that it was so lopsided. This rival, I mean, I'm sorry, but I have to do this at this point, rivalry. And you got to realize when I first moved up to Middle Tennessee, early 90s is when this rivalry came about because they had just busted off into divisions in the Southeastern Conference. Before that, the Southeastern Conference was just one conference, like the way the Big 12 is. And well, back then you didn't even have conference championship games, but at that point you would just, whoever won. And Florida had never even won a Southeastern Conference championship at that point.
Mm-hmm.
When they busted off into divisions and they made Florida, Georgia, and Tennessee in one division, and we knew that the rest of the divisions was trash, but Florida, Georgia, and Tennessee, it made it where that Florida game was so big, because if you had aspirations to get to the SEC title game, which was brand new, which was becoming a big thing, and then at the SEC title game, a lot of people believed if you could win the SEC title game at that point, you had a decent chance of possibly getting into the national championship picture, regardless you were going to the Sugar Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, we expanded to two more teams, and now the winner of the SEC championship game is almost guaranteed a lock to go to the playoffs. The only difference would be is we haven't had it yet in the playoff format, but not too long before the playoff format, a terrible team not terrible, but terrible for SEC standards as champions, like Missouri sneaks in and wins the SEC title, right?
Mm-hmm.
That would be the only outlier where you're like, okay, it's not going to happen this year. But pretty much, as a Florida fan, if you can get to the SEC title game and win the SEC championship game, as long as you don't have a ridiculous amount of losses, you're probably going to the playoffs.
Yeah.
So this game is huge on that factor. Florida is a 18.5 point favorite. I think is the last thing I saw yesterday. I'm going to look it up here in a second to make sure that that's still where we sit.
Looks like that's 19 now on Yahoo.
Is it 19? Okay. Well,
yeah.
Since Yahoo doesn't take bets, I'm going to go off an actual betting site. Yahoo. I would say they're pretty close. Yeah, it's 19, and then 64.5 is the over under. And I still don't feel comfortable taking Tennessee in the points. I think for me to take Tennessee in the points, it's got to get to 3 touchdowns plus. So it's got to creep up to 20.5 to 21, and then I might buy a half point to make it 21.5. And I still don't know if I feel comfortable about that. You as a Florida fan, are you expecting this game to be close by any stretch of the imagination?
No, I don't expect it to be close. I do think Tennessee has the chance to put up some points, though. Their offense has been capable of doing that throughout the first 3 weeks of the season. But the only problem is they're going up against a pretty good defense today in Florida, a good defensive line, a great secondary. Elam, he held Mechie to pretty much he held him down last week, and that was good to see. I don't think it'll be close though. No, not at all really. I think Florida will actually cover that spread of 19 points.
If Florida squeaks by, does that make you concerned? Do you go, man, was that Alabama game just kind of, I won't say it's a fluke because I thought Florida played a good game, but what did Alabama play a bad game? What did I really see last week? If it's a close game, do you start thinking to yourself, oh, are we going to be in trouble come Georgia?
Yes, I'll start getting a little bit. Well, I'm already pretty nervous for the Georgia game, but I'll be a lot more.
Cutoff? Let me ask you that. What's the cutoff? How much does Florida have to win by tonight for you to say that game last week was not a fluke? Florida is going to have a very good chance of beating Georgia. Let's roll.
At least 2 touchdowns.
Okay. Game is, by the way, 7 p.m. kickoff. It is in Gainesville. As far as I'm seeing on the weather, it should be really nice. It's 67 degrees right now in Gville, and it should be around kickoff, as we all know how the sun will go up and down, and not expecting any rain, so we should have perfect conditions. The only way I would feel much more comfortable about taking the spread, that game would have to be in Knoxville. But I remember a couple of years ago, the game was in Knoxville, and you thought, well, maybe things go the right way. In Tennessee, now obviously different coaching staff, et cetera, but they laid an egg, turned the ball over, I think it was 5 or 6 times, and the game was never in doubt. And that was not a very good Florida team, but Tennessee kept handing them the ball. Like right.
Was that Butch Jones era?
What's that?
Was that Butch Jones era, Tennessee?
If it wasn't, I believe it was, because Pruitt wasn't there long enough.
And Butch, he was there for a long time, a lot longer than Tennessee fans wanted him to be.
This was pre-COVID. This was it was either 2018 or 2019. The name's escaping me, and I would normally be able to go, well, they're in Gainesville this year, so flip flop, but with the weird COVID, I would think. I don't remember if Florida played Tennessee and Knoxville last year because of the weird COVID deal, but I would think that it was probably 2018 because we're sitting here in an odd year and we're in Gainesville. So I'm thinking an even year would take us back to 2018 in Knoxville. And I remember I had a buddy come over as a Gator fan to watch the game, and we were, fired up for it. And Tennessee, even though Florida State will always be my number one because my dad graduated from there. I grew up going to these games since I was, knee high to a grasshopper, and that'll always be in my blood. I pull for Tennessee as Justin always says, as a side girl, because I lived in Tennessee for 20 years, and when they became the Volunteers versus Gators in the same division. Because when I first moved up there, was the very first year, and people would say, I don't really have a problem with Gator fans. I was like, then I kind of have a problem with you. And so I wouldn't pull for Tennessee. Tennessee lost to Florida. Spurrier was the coach. I don't remember the game, the score, et cetera, et cetera. But Spurrier said something very smart aleck in the interview, after the game. And Gator fans were ticked. And they were like, well, to heck with him. I don't da. And at that point I was like, so you hate the Gators now? And like, yeah, screw the Gators. Like, now I can pull for you. Now we see eye to eye. Now it's not all kumbaya and, well, I want to win, but if we don't win, then we're still SEC brothers crap. Because I've never bought into any of that crap.
I'm not with that either. I'm with you. I agree with you. I hate it.
It's the absolute worst.
I can't pull for my rivals. I don't care if they have the same conference badge as me.
We've got a clip that I play during commercials sometimes, and it's me going on a rant. I forget who's on the show with me, but it's me going on a rant about it. I do it a couple of times, but one of them was I was drawing the parallel of if you think Duke and North Carolina are pulling for each other in basketball because of the conference, and so you're sadly mistaken. I would sit in those bars up in Tennessee, watch basketball, around March Madness, and these Tennessee fans would be pulling for the Kentucky Wildcats come March because they were, well, we're never any good in basketball, so go Wildcats. I like Kentucky basketball, I like Tennessee football. I'm like, the heck kind of nonsense is that? well, we're never going to be good. I was like, well, you're not going to be any good as long as Kentucky continues to be elite, because guess where Kentucky's recruiting from? All around in this Tennessee area. Oh, by the way, if anyone good's coming out of Nashville or wherever, they want to go play for the Wildcats. You've got to flip that script on them. And so but it's different when you are in a state like Florida where your main rival is your in-rival state. Your main rivalry is an in-state rivalry.
Yeah. It's
different when Tennessee thinks that the problem with the Tennessee Volunteer fan is they don't have a real rivalry, and they've never understood that. And I've tried to go to bat and to war with them on this on many occasions up in several drinking establishments up there. Is that they'll try to say, well, the third Saturday of October, blah 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 blah. We got that rivalry and blah blah blah. The Gators and Vanderbilt's an in-state rivalry. First of all, shut up if you're calling Vanderbilt a rivalry in anything.
Yeah, if you're rivaling Vanderbilt, then you've got a problem.
Yeah, because it's not competitive on any shape or form. If we're talking about baseball, Vanderbilt crushes you. If we're talking about basketball, at this point right now, Tennessee is crushing Vanderbilt. 20-something years ago, Vanderbilt was much more dominant basketball. There's never been a point where that has been competitive at the same time. In football, Vanderbilt has always been terrible. They might play you a close game. They might beat you, but Vanderbilt has always been terrible. Even games where Florida's almost lost to Vanderbilt. A Florida fan will say, well, I can't sit here and tell you that was a good win. I'm just glad we escaped, but it's not a good win, right? Because they're terrible. So, yeah, throw that outside. And then when they tried to put up the Florida or Alabama argument, I was like, it's not the same, man. You're not in the same state. So, the closest thing would be the Alabama thing because they are neighboring states. And you do have a lot of this bandwagon stuff where a guy's from Murfreesboro, Tennessee's never left the state lines and he's yelling Roll Tide, right? You get some of that in Jacksonville with the Georgia-Florida game, but that's a little more realistic because at least the game's played here, right?
Yeah.
So the Tennessee fan does not understand a rivalry. So they've always tried to make a rivalry out of Florida or Alabama. Once again, in the last 20 years, these aren't rivalries because they've been owned by Bama and Tennessee. So the only way to flip this script is Tennessee's got to go into Knoxville and beat Florida. Beat them on a stage like tonight.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not giving them much of a chance of doing it, but that's how you turn it into a rivalry. Duke's not claiming Florida State football as a rivalry with them.
No.
Right. It's just you have to beat them and make them mad and ruin their season, and then they get mad and ruin your season, and that's how it becomes a rivalry.
Yeah. I mean, it's never really a rivalry when everybody else looks at it as a yearly beatdown. I mean, you can't really say Tennessee Alabama is a rivalry because it's just not.
No, it's not. And I know they've had a couple of close calls. But all the close calls I'm thinking of, my God, they're ancient. Like I'm thinking of the one close call where the Tennessee, they might have even have won. I can't remember if they even won that game, but it's been over a decade where the Big Paul blocked the game-winning field goal. But anyways, my whole point of the entire thing is Tennessee's got to pull off a victory before we can call this a rivalry. Until then, it's just a divisional game that's important to Florida, not important to Tennessee, because unless they win this, are they really in the race to go to the SEC championship game?
I wouldn't even say they are if they do win this game.
Because
they're still probably going to slip up against Kentucky or something.
Right. If you're going to get out of this alive per se and get into the SEC title game, it begins today at Florida. But I'm not even saying that they can go in there and beat Georgia, et cetera, but it begins today at Florida. And by the way, I am, if I'm a Gator fan, the one thing I am concerned about, I talked about this a little bit yesterday. They've got kind of a big game next week against Kentucky.
Kentucky's a much better team than Tennessee.
Right. Kentucky's a much better team than a lot of people, I believe. We're going to find out a little more today because when they play South Carolina, they should maul them. They're only a 5-point favorite, but I think that is perception of college football fans not believing in Kentucky. But Kentucky's a pretty good football team. And when Kentucky, my whole point to this is they host Florida next week. Could Florida be looking ahead? Would you be worried about Florida peeking ahead, saying, man, we got Kentucky next? They have not ranked Kentucky yet, so that may not make as big a deal. But Kentucky is a good team. Could the Florida football team be looking ahead, say, man, they're undefeated?
I don't think or I think there's a chance that we're kind of looking past the Tennessee game already, kind of looking at what's ahead of us. But I don't think it would be because of the Kentucky game. I do think Kentucky is a solid team. I just don't think they're a team that you stress out about a week in advance. I think Florida's absolutely capable of beating them. I think it could be a very close game, but I don't think there's any reason Florida shouldn't win that game.
Well, Florida has famously struggled in Lexington over the years, but a lot of that used to be where they played the game or when they played the game. The Kentucky game used to be for years, Florida-Georgia would play, and then the following week, it was Florida-Kentucky. And there would be like an emotional letdown. And though Kentucky wasn't a very good football team in those years, they had some scares. Now, Florida normally won, but there was usually some scares. Georgia always struggled because right after the Florida game, they played Auburn. And they were never really all that excited about that. I don't know if that's what the schedule is this year. I'd have to look at it. But this game, I think there's a little bit of a peek ahead factor just because Kentucky's undefeated. They're going to be going to Kentucky. And Florida, if you're sitting down and you're a Florida football player and you're looking at your schedule for the next month, you got Tennessee at home, at Kentucky, at home against Vanderbilt, and then at LSU. But LSU is not a good football team this year.
Yeah.
The one game you're looking at until the Georgia game would be Kentucky. Now LSU's got some intrigue because it's on the road. It's in Death Valley, and we
saw what happened last year too.
Right, and we know that you play Death Valley, especially if it's a night game. I'm assuming they'll probably make it an ESPN night game. Anything can happen, but from a standpoint right now of what's happened so far, I think Florida could be caught looking ahead. The only thing that saves that is that Kentucky's not ranked. If Kentucky was ranked 18th, 19th in the country, and you're looking at it, you're like, man, Kentucky's good. And it's just human nature. You start looking ahead, you start thinking about it, and then you're not focusing on, if you're a defensive back, you're not focusing on what you should be focusing on this week, which is shutting down the receiver in front of you. So real quick, what do you think the score will be?
I'm going to say 38 to 17 Florida.
So covering the spread?
Yes.
I like that. That would put the total at what, 55? I think the over under right now is 60 something. Let me see here. I
think Tennessee will score more points than we'd like them to, but I don't think they'll put up enough.
64.5 is the over under. It seems like a high number. I think Tennessee will struggle to score. I don't think Florida will. I think it'll be, I'll say, I'm going to keep it right under, and I'll say Florida wins 41-20. But it would not shock. I don't feel as comfortable about any of these spreads in this game as I do. Right now, the projection is Florida at 42 points. I'd be a little nervous taking the over on that because in these rivalry games-ish or division games, conference games, to hit 42 points, that means you got to hit the ground running. You can't be stalling out. You can't have like a slow first quarter. And so,
speaking of running, I'd say Florida's running game looks incredible. I really like those off from Malik Davis and Naquan Wright.
Were you a little more impressed with Emory Jones?
I wasn't terribly. I mean, I don't want
I
to
was.
discredit him because we only lost by 2, which I'm not trying to be all big about moral victory.
Which was a really stupid 2-point conversion, by the way.
Yeah, that was a terrible play call by Mullen. He had a lot of questionable decisions. But yeah, I mean, Emory, he didn't have an incredible game. I think the run game kind of kept us in it, really. We were really heavily relying on that. But, when it came down to it, I think Emory had a solid game. I do still think, though, that you put Anthony Richardson and you see a different result in that game.
Possibly. I think if you call a better 2-point conversion play.
Well, yeah, we would have been in overtime.
Right.
Most likely.
That's one of the worst 2-point conversion play. The only thing worse than that is when they do stupid things like the Penn State Auburn game where they threw that fade in the end zone at the end of the game. And I'm like, dude, those fades just don't work in college football. They just don't. I've never seen them work on a consistent basis. The fade only works in the NFL, and you're talking about having elite receivers making elite plays. And I've still never have liked the fade, especially on like a 4th down. If it's 1st and goal, whatever. You throw.
I like it on mismatches. I like it again on like big receivers against
4th down,
maybe not on 4th down,
or 2-point conversion. In other words, winner take all.
It's risky.
I think it's an incredibly lazy play call because you're asking a player to make a better play than the defensive back he's up against. And fair enough if you have the mismatch, but the quarterback's got to make the perfect throw. The receiver's got to make the perfect catch. And, oh, by the way, he normally has to dance his feet in bounds.
Yeah.
I've always hated that play. I've never understood, and teams have gotten away from it over the years. You spread them out wide, you need 2 yards. If you're not going to do some version of a run play, whatever happened to the old-fashioned slant? That thing is almost unstoppable. If you do a slant, a 2-yard slant, the guy's just basically got to lean forward and catch the ball as he's falling into the end zone.
Well, especially in today's football with how kind of easy it is to draw a PI call. All it takes is one little hand around the hip that gets pulled. That's another chance at it.
And watch college football. There's rarely any contact in close proximity. They're expecting a fade, so they're almost pushing back like this.
Yeah,
you got a slant underneath in the wide open. You don't see it called as much as it used to be, but when I see teams do it, it's usually wide open for a touchdown. And the guys still got to make the catch, but I like that a lot better chance than a fade. Because I mean what that realistically is, that's saying that we're down by a point, we need a bucket. It's in game 7. We're gonna go for an alley-oop. Everybody ready? On 3. Whoa. We're gonna do what? You know what has to go right for me to complete an alley-oop? And it's the same thing. It'd be like trying to drop a squeeze play with 2 strikes and the bases loaded, 2 outs in the bottom of the 7th of the World Series. Yeah. Can we go with something that has a little better chance of working? Is all I'm saying. Real quick before we switch gears, as Angela is joining us here in a second, around the Southeastern Conference. Now, you don't have a lot of big games today per se. Georgia Vanderbilt, by the way, that line's been sitting steady around 35. I took Georgia when it was down around either I have it at 34 and a half. I think Georgia's absolutely going to roast Vanderbilt. I don't know how Vanderbilt's going to get the ball going. The only way this doesn't cover for Georgia is if they get the case of the dropsies and just fumbles the ball and just makes it a sloppy game. But it's supposed to be perfect weather in Vanderbilt. It's 57 degrees right now at Nashville Stadium. Do you see this being competitive anyways? I'm a little surprised this line is 35 when South Carolina's line was 31 and a half, and Carolina covered. And I took that last week, but I have no faith in Vanderbilt. What say you?
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think Vanderbilt's even remotely good. I think this should be an absolute routing.
Would you do the 35? Is it too rich for your blood?
With numbers that big, I tend to stay away from it, but I do think there's a pretty high chance they cover that. Georgia's defense, for one, I don't see Vanderbilt getting anything going on offense today. Plus, it's Vanderbilt. There's nothing their defense can do to stop the Georgia offense. It's just going to be a blowout from the start.
Now, Georgia might be looking ahead because Georgia, speaking of a look-ahead game, Georgia hosts Arkansas, and then they're at Auburn in consecutive weeks after this. So they definitely
be a little
could be
difficult mini stretch, but
right.
I think Georgia should be able to handle it.
I just think Georgia's defense is so good. Vanderbilt's not going to be able to score.
Yeah.
So how in the world are they going to stay within 35 unless Georgia's offense just really lays an egg? The other game, to me, the most intriguing game in the Southeastern Conference today is Kentucky -5 at South Carolina. I don't understand why Kentucky's only a 5-point favorite at this point. I get it that South Carolina's a tough place to play at night, et cetera, but they didn't look very good against Georgia. They covered on the back end, but when you look at all the games in the SEC, that one, and then of course Texas A&M, Arkansas, that's the big game. That's the 3:30 kickoff. A&M is a 5-point favorite at this point. Over unders 47. What are you liking in the A&M Arkansas game?
It's going to be tough on the road for A&M, and I don't feel particularly confident in them after the Colorado game with how close it was. But I do think what's up?
Their offensive production scares me to take A&M on the road.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know. I think that's going to be the closest game of the night within the SEC. I think it should be a good game on the road for A&M against Arkansas, but man, that's tough. You know, I'm gonna say Arkansas squeaks out a close one. I don't know how. I don't think Texas A&M offense is gonna be able to get enough going.
I'm pulling for Arkansas. It's got and people, you hate Jimbo Fisher. I don't care anything about Jimbo Fisher. I don't wish him ill will. I don't pull for him. I'm just like, whatever. It is what it is. He didn't want to be there, and it is what it is. But I think it would be cool for Arkansas to rise up and build a program back as Oklahoma and Texas are coming back into the SEC, because that would be a really fun rivalry. Texas versus Arkansas, Texas versus Oklahoma. That is old school football rivalry that I grew up on as a young kid in the old Southwest Conference. And that would be really cool for it to, because what I'm hoping is that the SEC is smart enough to align the divisions the way they should be aligned. And all three of those teams will be in the same division. Right.
Yeah.
And you would almost create a Southwest Conference part 2. And, oh, by the way, here are the Mississippi schools, right? Because you had nowhere else to put them. And then Alabama and Auburn would come east, and that would be a lot of fun to watch. Alabama, Florida every year. Auburn, Georgia would stay intact. Florida, Auburn would come back. I know Tony has really wanted to see that. So as we wait for Angelo to pop in here, I see him in the waiting room. I don't know if he's ready to roll or not, but here he comes. But that to me is one of the most interesting games of the entire day. And because I'm pulling for Arkansas, that's what I'm going to take. But I like Arkansas to pull off the upset, mainly because it's in Arkansas. And once again, when I watched A&M, I watched them play 2 games this year. I'm not convinced that offense is any good. The defense is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But the offense, I think it's going to be a low-scoring game at home. I'll take the home team. Angelo, how are you this morning, sir?
Good. If it looks like I'm a little disheveled, I am. It was the first night of bourbon weather last night. Remember the conversation?
Yeah, we had this conversation last year, I believe. And then I tried to explain to you in the South, it's always bourbon weather.
Bourbon weather. It was down in the 50s last night. It was beautiful. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, it's cooler here in Florida. I won't say it's that kind of weather, but it's cooler in Florida, and I am ready for the first day that I feel like is an actual college football day. Here in Jacksonville, it's 71 degrees right now. It'll get up into the high 70s today and probably get down to the 60s tonight. Putting a bow on the SEC talk, Arkansas and A&M, where are you leaning there today? It's a 5-point spread, and it's in Arkansas.
I mean, it's in Texas, right?
Is that a neutral site game?
Yeah, it's in Arlington.
Oh, okay. I missed that. All right. So it's in Texas. All right. So that kind of changes things a little bit. I thought they were playing it actually yep. Okay. Yep. You're right. I see it penciled in now. I didn't see that before. So it's in Jerry's World.
Right.
And still A&M, you know what? I think it's going to be almost a road game anyways. And I'll tell you why. A&M will bring the fans, but Arkansas fans will come to Dallas.
Yep.
And so, all right, so it'll be like a Florida Georgia game. It'll probably be half and half.
Yeah, I think it'll come down to the wire. I think it'll be a close game. I think you guys.
I don't know if I would give up the 4.5 still.
Yeah, no.
I think I would lean Arkansas. In the over unders 20. So let's say they're accurate on the over under 47 points scored. It's going to be really hard to cover a 5-point spread if only 47 points are scored in this game. And they're usually pretty close on these over unders in Vegas, much more in the NFL, but still. I think I would have to lean Arkansas. My site now showing plus 4.5, so some Arkansas money's coming. There's some drunk dudes in Dallas right now, oil men from Arkansas just throwing money. That's just sending the line the other way. We're Big Suey. Let's go, baby. Switching gears a little bit. Let's go to the ACC. We'll go ahead and rip the band. You know what? Before that, real quick, the Yankees took care of the Red Sox last night. Are you excited?
Oh, that was a great game. I was a little nervous though. It was 7-0. All of a sudden, I turn and look. It's 7-3. You know,
I bet you were nervous, except for the fact it was bourbon weather.
Oh yeah, that's why I said I turned around and I looked and I was like, "What happened? What happened?" No, but I mean, I think
left 3 runs. I'm talking to a fat chick. I don't know what happened, man. What's going on? Stupid bourbon weather.
No, but I think that was a big win, and now we could have our sights set on that first wild card to host a game. Toronto's been falling lately, which is surprising, especially since they have the easier schedule down the road.
That's the biggest problem with Boston and Yankee fans when they look at this and they're like, oh, well, they've got to go to New York next week. Well, yeah, but they finished with the freaking Orioles.
Right.
Toronto does.
And the Yankees are actually going to Toronto.
Right. So, and unfortunately, that game's not in Buffalo. It's actually going to be in Toronto, Canada. Because if it was in Buffalo, I'd say that'd almost be like a Florida, Georgia type setting. But yeah, so that's going to come down the wire. They play tonight, right, at 7:15 Eastern.
I think it's a 4:00 game.
Oh, okay. I thought they were doing I thought they were the Fox game of the week. All right. Well, fair enough. Maybe it might be competing against something else, so maybe that's why they moved it. A couple of weeks ago, when I looked at it, I was like, "Man, that's going to be playing at the same time as the Florida Tennessee game." I knew Florida State wouldn't be under the light, so let's go ahead and transfer over to that. FSU versus Louisville. I feel a little better about Florida State after watching Wake Forest thump Virginia last night. They've got a pretty good football team, but good God, man, they got to get a W. I mean, if they go 0-4, when do you think the rumblings start? Is it 0-4? Is it 0-5? When do they start going, we want a new coach?
I don't think it will. I mean, their president came out the AD.
They go winless. They go winless, and
they won't go winless. They play UMass.
They also played
Jacksonville State, so I wouldn't say anything's out of the cards.
I'll tell you one thing would save his bacon. He could go winless, and if he beats Florida or Miami, it'll be okay. It'll be like
I'll be honest with you right now. I think if they keep losing and they keep their recruits and Hunter, I think they'll be fine. If Hunter decommits and they keep losing, then they have no reason to keep him. I think that's what they're banking on, right? And I sent you that video the other day, and he says he's committed no matter what, even if they go 0-12. Words are words, though. Until the signature is signed on.
I'm not buying that. I got to see it to believe it, man. And by the way, it's just one athlete. they need like an entire elite recruiting class, and you're not going to get 20 something really good players to come to a team that's 4-8.
I'll tell you what, though, no one's decommitted yet.
It's September 25th.
Right.
You don't sign until right before Christmas, right? That's a lot of losses to endure. And a kid go, do I want to go play here? I got 7 different options. I want to go play somewhere where they're not going to bowl games. They're not winning games. Eventually, as the losses mount up, then you'll start hearing dissension in the locker room. You'll start hearing things come out. Well, we never really believed in him to begin with. It's Willie Taggart 2.0. It's Willie Taggart all over again.
We'll see. We'll see tonight. I have no expectations.
They've got to get a W to put a thumb in the dam.
And they have 2 very winnable games. I'm not saying they're going to win. They have.
That's what I'm saying. If they're 0-5, they lose to Louisville and Syracuse consecutively at home. Handwriting's on the wall.
Yep.
Who's your quarterback today? Who you riding and dying with?
I mean, I don't know. I see the. I know you're a McKenzie fan. He just looked.
Anybody but Travis.
He just looked a little off last week, but I know it's difficult when.
But you can't keep bringing him in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out.
Right.
It's like I don't remember the kid's name, but do you remember the guy that they tried to play outfielder / relief pitcher, and they were trying to move him back and forth? It was like for the Rangers or something like that 5 or 6 years ago, and they tried to bring the guy in and out because like, oh, he can play outfield and he can play reliever, and we're going to bring him back and forth. And they tried it like 3 times, and he was a disaster. He couldn't get any rhythm. And so they eventually had to say, dude, you've got to get it. And I don't even know whatever happened to that guy, but it's the same thing. If you're a quarterback, you have to get a rhythm. Even if you have a bad series, you have to be allowed to go back out there again.
Well, not for nothing. They just need to stick to the running game. I mean, they have 2 quality running backs.
And I'm not saying don't ever let Travis on the field ever again. I'm saying when he does bring in the package, which is essentially a wildcat, you call it whatever you want to call it, and bring him in to keep the team honest, but let it be known that Milton is your starter. If not, then turn the page and go to Purdy.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. They said that if that Purdy's the backup, if what's the name can't go, Jordan Travis.
Keep going to that Jordan Travis will. He's terrible. He's absolutely terrible.
He looked a bit slower too this year. Last year, the thing was you could put him in and he could make something with his feet. He hasn't had any electrifying runs this year.
What defenses know now? They just put an extra guy. They're essentially the entire defense is spying on him because they don't have to worry about it. Every once in a while, he'll burn you with the pass. But okay, I'll still take my chances and put as much pressure up front and make it where his running lanes are non-existent. This is James Blackman all over again, where you keep seeing the same thing over and over and over, expecting different results. And it's just, I'm probably going to have the game on mute. I'm going to watch it, but I'm probably going to have it on mute. And I'm probably going to have like the Arkansas-Texas game on volume because I cannot continue to listen to this junk and then have to sit there and deal with watching them look just putrid, not even competitive. And against Louisville is not a good football team. No matter what Florida State's try to convince themselves of around 5:30 this afternoon. 2 hours in the game, this is a pretty good football team we're listening to. No, it's not.
Second coming of Lamar Jackson, right?
Yeah, exactly. Cunningham, yeah. Lamar Jackson has a squad around him, though. Cunningham does not. And Cunningham, crazy enough, is about half his weight, if that's possible. Moving on from that, NC State, Clemson. This one I'm interested in. This one should be a lot of fun. It's on the road, and Clemson's a 10-point underdog. What are you liking in this?
I think a 10-point favorite.
What did I say?
Clemson is. I think you said underdog.
Oh, my bad. Yeah.
You're good.
It's NC State plus 10.
I mean, it's always tough. It's always tough to play at Carr Finley. You know, we know that from old, Florida State games back in the day when we were coming in and we were favored, and they always make it difficult. The fans are rowdy. Clemson's not looking that good either lately. They lucked by, they squeaked by against Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech have easily won that game. Clemson could be 1-2 right now, 0-1 in the ACC. I like Devin Leary. I like the NC State quarterback. He's thrown up some quality numbers. Granted, it's been against USF and Furman when they play the team with the Pulse Mississippi State. They've lost. So, I mean, obviously, I think Clemson's on upset alert, but this could be another game where all the experts are predicting Clemson on upset alert, and Clemson could just come out and rout them. I wouldn't take the 10. I would take NC State.
Absolutely. I'll be shocked if this game isn't down to the wire. I will be absolutely shocked if Clemson goes out there and puts a boat race on them. Then I'll shut up about Clemson for a few weeks. Well, maybe, but I think this is going to be a very good game. And like you said, Leary's the guy that you have to look at. At this stage, he's a better quarterback than Ugalele. I believe if you're voting right now, Leary's probably your first team quarterback in the ACC, maybe the kid out of Boston College, but Ugalele to me is third at best. He has not been impressive. What's your score in this game?
I'll go. I think Clemson will squeak by. I'll go Clemson something like 31-28.
31-28. Okay. Bobby, what say you?
Yeah, Leary has looked so far much better than DJ has, but it's still Clemson. It is going to be tougher on the road against North Carolina State. I think that's going to be a very close game. I think it's going to come down to the wire. Ultimately, I think a final drive of the game will decide it. But I think Clemson etches out a pretty close win on the road. I'll say 30-24.
30-24. I'm going to give him a fighting chance. I'll you know what? I'll save that for a little later. And there's a reason for that. Let's go ahead and get into stupid underdog picks. See, so the way the standings sit right now in the stupid underdog picks, Tones and Bobby are tied for last at -4. And Tony and Angelo are tied for second, third for 0. And I've gotten lucky these first 2 weeks. I've hit Michigan State last week, and the week before, who the heck did I pick? I don't even remember. But anyways, I'm up to 21 points right now. Got 6.5 last week. Last week, Bama, Florida, Tony did cover with the plus 14.5, so he jumped up to 0. He was at -2. Angelo went from 2 to 0, taking Florida State. Bobby took Central Michigan, did not cover at 19.5. And Tones took 33.5 in UNLV, and they got blown out by 45. So I'm going to go ahead and throw Tones out there. Tones is a part, I believe he's in the reserve. And so once every month, he can't be here for the show on Saturdays. So since he's tied with Bobby, I'm going to go ahead and throw his out there. He's taking Notre Dame, a little bit of a homer pick. He's taking Notre Dame plus 6.5 on the stupid underdog. So Bobby, that turns it to you. Who do you have?
I'm going to take Georgia Tech at home plus 13.5. I think they held Clemson to a very close game last week. I don't think they'll probably beat North Carolina, but I do give them a solid shot to win it. But yeah, I'll say Georgia Tech plus 13.5. I think it's a very close game.
All right, so let me jot these in the chat real quick so I can go back and see it. Bobby's taking Georgia Tech. Trying to do 6 things at once here. You're saying the line you guys plus 13.5. What time is that game?
That is at 6:30 Central, so 7:30 Eastern your time.
Yeah, no one of importance lives in the Central time zone. I'll always do Eastern. Okay, yeah. All right, and so you're taking 13.5. Angelo, where are you going?
That was going to be my pick, so I had to quickly panic and find another game.
Russell.
I'll go Rutgers. 20.
You son of a gun.
20 and a half. Michigan 330.
So Angelo's taking Rutgers plus 20 and a half. And that'll put, what did Tony, he chimed in here a second ago. I don't think he's going to be able to make it. He's going to take West Virginia. What is the line we have on that? I haven't seen it. I think it's 17. Is that right?
Yeah.
What time is that game?
That's at 7:30.
Yeah, okay. I've got 17. All right, so 17. And so that will leave me. I'll go ahead and take NC State. The heck with it, with the 10 points. I think they've got a decent chance of at least covering that. And if they hit, I really wanted that Rutgers one. That's one I have, because if you're leading, you go last. So I always have to have like 5 of them jotted down. And Rutgers was the first one on my list. I didn't think anyone was going to take it. I took them. I took the points on that yesterday because it slipped up to 21 for a second. So I went ahead and grabbed it and bought a half point. So I'm actually getting 21 and a half on the line out in Vegas. Rutgers plays Michigan very well. They almost upset them. I think it was 2 years ago. Now it was in New Jersey, but still. Now the only thing that concerns me with Rutgers is that they're missing 2 of their defensive backs. One's a starter. Some kind of a paintball incident that they were arrested for. I didn't read the details. I don't know if y'all did or not, but it was bad. I mean, I was like, what could they have been doing with paintballs? I don't know if they were like doing a drive-by shooting or something, a paintball gun, but they did something with the paintball gun and it has them suspended at this point. Did anyone else catch a story?
No.
Okay.
No,
It was a
kinda
blurb on
remind me of
ESPN. And I clicked in because what I'm looking for, I'm always on the mindset of the line. And what I was looking for was, what does this mean? And the first thing that popped up was that starting defensive back is out. And I was like, because I had just taken the spread and this story popped out. I was like, I still like my chances. I got to be convinced that Michigan is as good as everyone's trying to build them as, because Michigan seems like they're always a fraud. And in fact, even in the story, they're saying, and at this point, Michigan, the best team in the Big Ten. I'm like, you better hope Ohio State didn't hear that. That's all I'm putting out there, man. Just because Ohio State lost to Oregon doesn't mean that they're not the best team in the Big Ten.
I'd even say Penn State might take offense to that too, no?
Yeah, Penn State.
Yeah, absolutely.
Although Penn State's
I think they might be the best.
Penn State's got to prove to me that they can beat Ohio State before I worry about what Penn State has to say. Beating Auburn, what I think is a lesser than Auburn team. It's a good win, but I'm not going to start all of a sudden start rallying the boys. Go Penn State! They're headed to the playoffs. I can't buy into it. By the way, last night, forgot to mention it, Syracuse got a big win for their program, beating Liberty. I know that sounds just sad and pathetic, but they beat Liberty last night in the Carrier Dome, 24-21. Liberty's a decent football program nowadays. That's a pretty big W for Syracuse.
Mm-hmm.
And Dino, I like Dino. I hope Dino does well. I don't want him to do well next Saturday, but I hope he does well. Some of his videos where he's done were was it 2 or 3 years ago where he came out and he started, and right after they upset somebody, I want to say it was Clemson, but it might have been someone else, but it was a big name. And he came out. They had this small, tiny locker room. My first thought was, my God, you need an upgrade in that locker room. But because they were at home, right? And he comes out. I'm sure y'all will remember this now that I'm saying it. He comes and goes, it's not their fault. They didn't know. And then he started getting them, jumping up around. So I thought it was a really cool video. Angelo, I know you got to jump off here in a second. Any other games that you liked today, point spread wise?
Well, I could give you my lock because that's kind of giving it away.
Yeah, go ahead and do the lock. It's close enough.
I would say my lock's going to be Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame. They're playing in Chicago. They're going to have tons of fans there. It's basically going to be another home game. Wisconsin 6.5. Notre Dame has looked good sometimes. They haven't looked good, but I think it'll be a boring game. I think it'll be a very boring game, low scoring, but I see Notre Dame winning that game. Looking at other point spreads, I like NC State. I think they'll cover. I really like the one that was taken, Georgia Tech over UNC. I think that would be close. I could see something like West Virginia holding it close for the first half or so, but I mean, you're looking at the slate games, not that great. I don't see really any other chances for a huge upset, or one of those games that if it's a 40-point spread, it's gonna be close either. So, just the ones that we pretty much mentioned.
I'm really hesitant on that Notre Dame game because I've seen this before where I think a team's got a chance to upset Wisconsin, and then they just impose their will with a ridiculous offensive line. And nothing against Notre Dame per se, but them squeaking by Florida State doesn't look good in week 3 as it did in week 1. And so that just makes me concerned. Now, it is essentially a home game for Notre Dame. It's being played in Chicago, and though it's being billed as Wisconsin being the home team, they're not. Not that Chicago's that far from Camp Randall, but Notre Dame's like an hour away. So I think that's going to be more of a Notre Dame crowd than it will be a Wisconsin crowd. So a little bit of a home team. I'm on the fence with that one. I have a hard time with it. Tones took it as his lock. I mean, as his stupid underdog pick. You got it as your lock. I'm probably on the wrong side of history here. I might be thinking too much about the way Michigan has shown up in Wisconsin and just gotten pounded. But I guess that's where game day is today, because I'm looking at the set. It looks like they're right outside Soldier Field. I'm surprised Lightfoot's letting them party out there. I'm surprised she doesn't have them all in lockdown.
How about that game last night, the UNLV game? UNLV was.
I didn't see it.
They were 30-point underdogs. Money line was like 2,500, 3,000, something like that. And UNLV was actually winning. I think going into the third, midway into the third quarter, and then Fresno ended up winning by 8, but it was a lot closer.
Man, 1 week too late, because I think that's who Tones had last week upsetting Iowa State. Remember, he took UNLV and they just got blown out. So
yeah,
just 1 week too late. I don't know what to make of Fresno State, because you're telling me that they squeaked by there, but remember they knocked off UCLA, and that was right about the time we thought UCLA could be a world beater after beating LSU.
Right.
I think there's a lot of parity in college football this year, but your elites are still going to be standing when it's all said and done. I think Alabama's definitely going to be there, and there's a good chance the winner of the Georgia-Florida game is going to be there in the playoffs. Michigan State was what impressed me the most last week. For them to go on the road, and they're now 3-0. Michigan State impressed me a lot. What is your one big thing?
I know. I think this is a huge game for Florida State. I think it's a huge game for Norvell. I think it's a huge game for the program. If they could win today, I'm not going to say they're turning around the program, but if they could win today, get a win next week against Syracuse at noon. Going 2-3 obviously is not great, but it could look like it could have been much worse. We see all these people on ESPN saying that they see a turnaround. We see the AD giving a vote of confidence in Norvell. I hope we win. I just don't know. The too many inconsistencies on the offensive side, too many penalties, dumb penalties. After the play penalties, 15-yarders. I hope Norvell figured it out. I like him, but at some point, like you said, I think if he starts off 0-4, 0-5, I think the writing on the wall is going to be coming soon.
If he goes 0-5, which if he loses today, who knows, because Syracuse is going to have another day to prepare, and they're going to be coming off that high of beating Liberty. He starts 0-5. I just don't know how he's going to keep his job. And it's going to sound ridiculous because they just brought the guy in, and for all intents and purposes, last year was such a weird year. And I know logically you would say they're not going to fire Norvell. Are you stupid? Like, come on. They're going to give him another year. But should they is the question. Because if it's not going in the right direction, at some point it has to come down to wins and losses. It can't just come down to, oh, well, you know, he's changing the culture and all that crap. Eventually you get to get a W on the field. When you see the same stuff over and over.
The big thing with Taggart, right, what people didn't like, obviously is disjointed. There's tons of, you know, pre-motion or pre-snap penalties, but it was just the lack of discipline with the penalties. Now we're starting to see that with Norvell too. So,
yeah, it's absurd. The constant penalties. I feel like it's Groundhog Day again.
The first to go will definitely be the coordinators, though. You know, they won't fire him. Let's be real, because they're still paying Taggart. They're not going to be paying 3 coaches, right? If they get rid of Norvell, right, they'd have to pay the 3 coaches, whoever the head coach is. Sorry, the train's going by. But they'd have to get rid of the coordinators, I think.
Would they? How deep would they go with that? Because you got some guys been on the staff for 30 years. I mean, is it time to change the entire culture? If they do fire Taggart, do they just wipe the whole slate clean? Say bringing in a brand new regime, because something's got to give.
I don't think they'll get rid of the Woodson, right? The DB, because I heard he's the main recruiter for Hunter. They'd have to. I think they'd get rid of the coordinator, the DC, forgot his name, and then Dillingham. I mean, the offensive play. You know, Norvell had so many times at Memphis where he looked like an offensive genius, right? I know it's Memphis, but still, for him, I don't know who's calling the plays. I don't know if it is Dillingham, if it's Norvell, and no one's just, you know, taking the blame for it or going to throw anyone under the bus. But you got to look at the DC first, and then you got to look at Dillingham.
I'd be willing to just wipe the slate clean and get rid of every darn one of them and just bring in an entire regime, because if they have to go that route, because it's absurd at this point, and they always talk about changing the culture. Well, what about the culture that's been there? His name's escaping me, but the defensive line coach has been there since they played for Florida State in the late 80s. Odell. He'd be one of the first ones I'd get rid of, because I'd be like, look, something is wrong. Something is broken here. And I don't know if you're too much of a player's coach and they love you and blah, 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 but are you saying stuff behind closed doors? Are you saying stuff that is undermining the rest of the coaching staff when Taggart comes in, when Norvell comes in? He's 3-9 at Florida State right now, 2-7 in the conference. He's allowed 35 points per game in the first 12 games.
And one of those wins was a comeback from behind in the fourth quarter last year against another FCS team.
It's pathetic. All right, brother. Well, I know you got to run. Congrats on the new ride, and we will see you next Saturday.
Yes, sir. Enjoy the games. See you guys later.
Yes, sir. We're going to take a really quick break. When we come back, Bobby and I are going to give you our locks and our one big thing, and we'll take a look at a few other spreads. You're listening to and watching the Armchair Quarterbacks here on YouTube. Keep it locked in here. It's football, baby. Dixie Football Nation getting ready for that noon kickoff.
Kiss my ass.
ACC football covered like no other here on the Armchair Quarterback.
Against the blitz, touchdown, Florida State. Preston scores the touchdown, and now it's Bowden's decision, and he sends Maui onto the field right away. Danny Cannell is the holder. Maui. This game is over. A 31-31 tie. A 31-31 tie.
A deep throw by Lawrence, a lot of contact. Justin Ross broke free from it. He's down in the end zone. Touchdown, Clemson. Justin Ross, a freshman wide receiver, big, rangy, and Trevor Lawrence knows. Throw it up against that single coverage. Give him a chance to make a play on a 50-50 ball.
If you're a fan of the ACC, pull up an armchair. You're home. Weekends in the fall just got a hell of a lot better. Saturday mornings, it's Dixie Football Nation. We talk SEC, ACC, the Big Ten, and more. It's the only true Southern football kickoff show. You don't want to miss it. Saturdays, the Armchair Quarterbacks have got you covered all football season long.
No
It's a miracle!
Mr. Rippemoff?
Yes, Dorothy?
A reporter and crew from News Center 7 Wastebusters are here to see you, sir.
News Center 7.
Wastebusters. They expose mind-boggling waste of taxpayers' money right here in the Miami Valley.
What do they want with me?
They said you sold the government a ballpoint pen, sir.
So?
For $1,000.
Well, it came with refills.
And a jar of paper clips for $2,000.
They were multicolored paper clips.
Uh-huh.
Red ones, blue ones.
What should I tell the Wastebusters, sir?
Do they have lights and cameras?
And the ballpoint pen, sir.
Tell them I went out my window, down the fire escape, and then booked down the street screaming like a madman.
I don't think they'll believe that, sir. Mr. Rippemoff? Uh-oh.
Me out to the ball game.
Get caught up with the big stories from around the world in sports in just a few minutes. It's Take Me Out to the Ball Game today, weekdays. Armchair Quarterbacks on YouTube. Baseball, football, basketball, whatever's trending in the world of sports, it's on Take Me Out to the Ball Game today in just a few minutes. It drops weekdays. Take Me Out to the Ball Game today on the Armchair Quarterbacks YouTube channel.
Take me out to the ball game.
I bought the fresh stick, just as you told me. You're absolutely right. It's neat and quick, and it goes on dry. It did make me feel cool and sweet, just as you said. I did everything you said, but my boss still hasn't asked me to lunch.
Unlike some deodorants, Fresh doesn't guarantee you'll get ahead in business. All Fresh does is keep you fresh.
When you think of it, that's quite a lot.
You go to hell and you die. I'm going to find out who you are. I don't think you can.
Good morning. Welcome back. Bobby, are you ready?
I am. I'm ready to go.
So, stop that stupid music. So real quick to get you caught up to speed in case you're just joining us. Angelo took Notre Dame plus 6.5 as his lock. Tones took Penn State minus 31.5. And Tony is taking Wyoming. I'm trying to find the line right now. I don't know what time that he never. I mean, how am I supposed to know who Wyoming's playing? Who cares who Wyoming's playing? I got to find who Wyoming's playing and what time they're playing. So we'll get through that here in a second. What is your lock of the day?
Okay,
I found it. Connecticut. They're playing. Okay, that's why Wyoming minus 32 at Connecticut. That's why he's going with that. Okay, I figured they were playing someone terrible, but there you go.
So my lock of the day, I'm going to go with Kentucky minus 5 against South Carolina. You mentioned it earlier. I think this Kentucky team is miles better than South Carolina. And while I do understand that it is a road game for Kentucky, I do think that they should win this game, and I think they should win pretty handily. They didn't play their best football last week. They did get me my lock, though. They got me the total points that I banked on. But I think I'm going to go back to them this week, minus 5 against South Carolina.
So y'all just keep taking my picks of what's going on here.
That one was too easy. That one's way too easy.
I agree. Well, also, I took them as the lock yesterday, so it's not like I can double down on it. So fair enough. This year, you are 1-0 since we started keeping up with this last week. You got the Chattanooga UK over 46.5. I forget what the total was, but it cleared it.
It was actually in the fourth quarter. It was pretty low scoring. I was like, shoot, they're not going to get this. And then they managed to.
So, you know what I thought when I was watching it? I thought you'd taken Kentucky minus the points. I was like, oh, man, he's not going to get this at all. This game's way too close. And then I went back, oh, it was the over he took. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think the line was like 23. And so I kept, because I always keep up with y'all's and I'm always pulling for us to do well. And and I just jotted down was Kentucky game, and I was thinking, all right, here we go. Justin, by the way, he took NC State plus 10, so I'm going to steer clear of that today. And you took Kentucky minus 5.
I did.
So it's going to be kind of a doubling down because that's what I took as my lock. So I'm counting Justin's locks on Fridays along with my locks in this whole mess. So if Kentucky doesn't cover, we're going to get doubly screwed on this. Justin took NC State plus 10. So I'm going to steer away from that, even though that's my stupid underdog. Tones, by the way, minus 31.5. What time is that? Is that a Penn State game? Do you have any idea? I think it's probably a night game, but I don't.
I think looking at it earlier, it was pretty close to the top, which means it'd be an earlier game. Or no, maybe it is. No, it is an early game. It's at noon your time. So a very early game.
Who are they playing this week?
Playing Villanova.
I knew it was
mighty Villanova Wildcats.
Yeah, I knew it was a bum. So he's taking Penn State minus 31.5. You've got Kentucky minus 5. Angelo's got plus 6.5 with Notre Dame, and the Wyoming. I did not jot down the spread. What is the spread of that Wyoming game? Was it 32?
It's something pretty wide. I can look for it.
I'm gonna go with 32 because I'm pretty sure that's what I saw. So 32, plus 32, and
I see 30.5 on Yahoo, but
quit going on Yahoo, man. Better. Yahoo is not legitimate.
It's got all the games in one place.
I get it, but Yahoo Sportsbook is wildly wrong all the time. It's always wrong. It's not indicative on what's going on out in Vegas. So that's why I steer clear, because they're not a legitimate gambling site. So they don't update it. They'll put a spread there and they'll let it sit there for 4 or 5 days. So anyways, betus.com is the best one to go to, because if you go there, you'll be able to see team totals. You'll be able to see the over under, and they update it pretty quickly. And what they tend to do is they end up doing a composite of all of them. But yeah, I've got 32 points, so we'll stick with that. So that leaves me to I'm going to go ahead and take the Rutgers Scarlet Knights plus the 20.5. I just feel like that Rutgers is going to keep this thing close enough. I would like to have the extra point to make it an even 3 touchdowns, but I think it's going to be a close enough game where that's not necessarily going to matter. And Rutgers plays them tough. Schiano has a hard-nosed football team normally that can go tit for tat with Michigan. And that game, is that an early game?
What game is it? The Rutgers one?
Rutgers.
That's 2:30 Central Time.
Okay, so
3:30 years.
3:30 in the real world. So 3:30 kickoff. Okay, so it's not a night game. It is in the big house, but it's not a night game. So I'm not really that concerned with what typically these types of mid-afternoon games in the big house, especially if it's an opponent that they're not that riled up about, Michigan gets going slow. So I'm going to lean with that. I think it's a solid pick. I did take Kentucky yesterday, so hopefully that covers across the spread. So real quick to catch us up to speed on the games we've picked, it's Kentucky minus 5, Rutgers plus 20.5, Wyoming minus 32, Notre Dame plus 6.5, and Penn State minus 31.5, and Justin took NC State plus 10. So right now on the year, as we look at it, we are 6, 7, 8, 9, and 2 on the spread. Justin and I always have a few more picks than everyone else because we're doing the Friday show. So pretty good start to the season. 9 and 2. I'll take that any day if we can get anywhere close to that, because we all know losing streaks are coming when it comes to sports gambling. Any other games that have your interest today?
I think the North Carolina State Clemson game could be fairly close. I mentioned the Georgia Tech North Carolina game earlier. Those two ACC games I think will be very close. Probably, I think the Georgia Tech game will be fairly low scoring, and I think both North Carolina State and Georgia Tech can cover the spread.
So there's another one that I really like that I talked about. I think it was yesterday. Boston College is an underdog at home against Missouri. I think Boston College is going to win that game. Now it's down to 1 point. I took it earlier in the week when it was 3. I think I actually got 3 in the hook, so 3.5. But I think Boston College is going to beat Missouri. It's in Boston, or Chestnut Hill, as they call it. It's in Chestnut Hill, and it's an early kickoff. Missouri's going to go east, so not a big deal, but it's 10 a.m. local time in Missouri for the kickoff, or 11 a.m. Excuse me. I think they're in Central. That tends to wear on a little bit when you have kids traveling and having an early kickoff. They usually come out sluggish. I'd be really interesting to see. So right now, Missouri's at 30 points. Is there over under? I would like to see what I'm going to try to pull it up here, but what is Missouri's over under for the first quarter? Because, or even first half, if you have the first half spread, I may not be able to grab that right now because and it takes too long to go back from one site to the other. But typically that means that the over under is going to be somewhere around 14.5 for the first half. I expect Missouri to come out sluggish, and they may come back and win, but I expect them to come out sluggish. Missouri, but I do like Boston College at home today. By the way, since we've talked about Georgia when it was 35 points less than an hour ago, it's jumped to 36.5. A lot of people are jumping on that Georgia number.
I don't know.
So if you're gonna grab Georgia, you better grab it quick, because I think that thing's gonna go up. It's a noon kickoff. I think that thing will go up probably another point before kickoff. And LSU, Mississippi State, that's a noon kickoff. I don't know what to make of that game, to be honest with you. Mississippi State has played better than I expected them to play this year. They got the win against NC State that I did not expect. But LSU, their athletes should be better than Mississippi State. It's in cowbell country. Mississippi State's a 1.5 point underdog at home. This game just stinks to me. I don't really think with it. The over under 56, that seems kind of high.
Yeah, I think I could see that being a pretty low scoring game. I haven't liked what I've seen from either team offensively so far, I guess. Specifically LSU.
The game model has it 28.5 to 27 LSU. That's a high scoring game for two teams. Early kickoff. They like to play it close to the vest. I think a lot of it's going off of last year's shootout. Remember in Louisiana, I'm pretty sure that game was, and it put Leach and Mississippi State on the map. Mississippi State gets the big W, and everyone thought, here we go, man. Leach is bringing the spread offense to the SEC. It's coming. Look out. And they come to find out LSU was just garbage last year, and that had a lot to do with it. Texas Tech and the Longhorns, we haven't even brought this one up. Do you give Texas Tech any chance in this one?
Well, considering what we saw from Texas last week, I wouldn't completely rule them out. I don't think Texas is as good of a team as their ranking may say. I don't even know if they're still ranked. They probably aren't.
They're not.
But they're still pretty highly touted, I suppose. But really, I just think I see them kind of more as a name now. I don't think they're much of they're very good on the field. And I think Texas Tech has a very good shot to win this game. They're 3-0 so far to start the season.
It's a 9-point spread. I almost took this as my stupid underdog.
Yeah, I think Texas may win this game, but I definitely could see Texas Tech covering that spread.
Texas Tech is 3-0. Now the problem is they haven't played anybody, so it's hard to. They have played Houston, but that's the biggest name they've played so far, and they beat them soundly, 38-21. But they played Stephen F. Austin, and they played Florida International, so they haven't really been tested per se. The same token, Texas. Now last week they won, but it was a bum. They put Rice 58-0. I don't even know why Rice still plays football. I thought
they played Arkansas last week. Was that the week before?
That was 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
They were blown out by Arkansas 40-21. They did beat U of L 38-18 when U of L was ranked. Now, that might have been fake news, as they say, but they were ranked at the time. It's in Texas. Well, obviously it's in Texas. They're playing Texas Tech, but it is in Arlington. No, where do they play? Not Arlington. It's escaping me. The Longhorns are the home team. But even with that being said, this is a rivalry game. There's been some pretty close games. I think 9 points might be entirely too much.
Mm-hmm.
Any other games jumping out at you?
A one possession game. I could see Oklahoma covering the spread against West Virginia.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have taken
kind of a risky pick.
Yeah,
it's a risky pick. But
yes,
I could definitely see Oklahoma doing that.
So Tony took it as a stupid underdog, and I don't know if that was just more him just not liking Oklahoma. But I don't know if they're going to be able to hang with them. At the same token, Oklahoma does lay some duds.
Yeah.
Every time you expect Oklahoma to just go out there and thwart somebody. I mean, how did they let Nebraska stick around?
Mm-hmm.
Nebraska's not a good football team.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma's certainly capable of blowing West Virginia out. The only problem is, like you said, they seem to let teams that they shouldn't be playing close to back into games. You saw it against Tulane. You saw it last week. That's why I say it's a risky pick, but I certainly think Oklahoma's capable of doing it.
The betting public, the money's coming in on Florida State. It's down to a pick 'em. Louisville was a 1.5 point favorite this morning. It's not in my blood to tell you to take Louisville, but if I was a betting man in this game, I don't bet on Florida State one way or the other normally.
Yeah.
It seems pretty tempting to take Louisville there. It's a pick 'em. It's 3:30 Eastern kickoff. The crowd's not going to be that raucous. And Louisville looked better, and they had an extra day to prepare than what Florida State would have had against we're going to see what the Florida State locker room's made of is essentially what we're going to find out. Because if Florida State comes in and lays in and gets blown out again by like they did against Wake Forest, I don't care if Wake Forest is a better team than them or not this year, to get just not even be competitive. We're going to find a lot of the character of the kids in that locker room.
I think Florida State's due for a win. I just
they're due. We're a month past due for a win.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you should have had 1 week too, for sure.
Should have had one in week 1.
Jacksonville State. Yeah.
They should have started off 2-0. I'll accept the Wake Forest game as even if Florida State would have been 2-0, they probably would have lost that game. I don't know.
Yeah.
It really depends on how much of that was a lack of effort. It's hard for me to see that sometimes with my garnet and gold glasses on when I watch these games. But they're definitely due for a win. But to what we were talking about earlier, Florida State's at home for the next 2 weeks against two teams that are not very strong in Louisville and Syracuse. If they don't win those 2 games, you've got to start. If they win those 2 games, I will lay off of Norvell for a minute. They win those 2 games, I'll say, okay, maybe he's turning the corner, et cetera, et cetera. If he loses today, goes 0-4, where does it turn around at?
Mm-hmm.
And unlike, Angelo is diehard to the point of where it's almost to a fault with Florida State, where he always believes the best is yet to come. I've seen this for too long. Grew up on this on college football. And when you get a program going in the wrong direction, it takes a monumental feat to turn it around.
Mm-hmm.
And the Notre Dame game would have turned it around, per se. Recruits would have been excited, et cetera, et cetera. They lost the game. Okay, but you could have dusted yourself off. You lose that game to Jacksonville State, which looked like a lack of effort and terrible coaching on the last play. And now you're like, all right, now we're going to Wake Forest. And they were just kind of numb at that point. I didn't see a very good effort. I'll be interested to see if they're actually fired up for this game. You'd think you'd be tired of walking around campus The kids going, man, y'all suck. Y'all ain't that good this year.
You imagine, yeah.
Because any of us that played sports when we were younger, maybe not on the college level, but high school and below, we remember the feeling of when the classmates are saying, man, y'all ain't very good this year, and you just want to fight them in the hallway. Like, well, you
can't say
you're not even
my high school
the team. Shut up.
My high school's football team, I didn't play on the team, but I can't say I know what you're talking about there because I think they won 2 state championships while I was there, and they were pretty. They still are. I mean,
What was the basketball team like though?
Well,
exactly.
Get into that.
Exactly. So at some point, someone's walking around the halls, their basketball jersey on game day, like they always had the kids do, and saying, "Y'all playing again today? Y'all ain't very good." It's unfortunate. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so eventually there comes a point in the locker room, because I've been in those locker rooms as a young man, and you stand around to heck with the coaches say, I am tired of losing. I'm tired of going home and explaining it to my family. I'm tired of telling my girlfriend. I'm tired of telling everybody. And nowadays you got social media.
I'm counting you there too.
You eventually have to go, this is our house. We have to defend our turf against Louisville. I mean, for love of God. So with all that being said, I'd still probably take the Cardinals because I haven't seen anything positive. If Milton comes out, if Milton comes out as a starter and they're going to let him play the entire game as a starter and not take him out and not play the flippity flop game, then I'll be a little more optimistic. But it's the same Jordan Travis crap. I don't care if he squeaks out a win. He's not going anywhere. You're not going to get any better. At this point, like I said, put Chubba Purdy in. The heir apparent. See if he's any good. Because he didn't get much of a chance last week. Or last year, excuse me. A couple other interesting games. Oklahoma State -5 against Kansas State. That should be a pretty good ball game, but it's at 7:00 Eastern. There's no way I'll be watching that. I would have liked that to have been on an early game because I would have had some interest in it. When you've got Kentucky and South Carolina and Florida and Tennessee, both at 7:00, the chances of me catching the Kansas State Oklahoma State game are slim to none. And I'm doing the Braves baseball broadcast again tonight.
A&M Arkansas at 2:30 is going to be a good game, I imagine.
Arkansas A&M, yeah. But I'm talking about.
I'm probably going to watch
your evening games. There aren't. There's not a whole. It's really kind of a dull night, to be honest with you. If you look at, if you're not a fan of any of these teams, and you look at it across the board, there's nothing that jumps out at me. I think the West Virginia Oklahoma game is the ABC night game, and that game's in Norman.
Another game I'm looking at, and it's not because I think it's going to be very entertaining, because of the spread. Michigan State's only a 4-point favorite against Nebraska. I think they'll definitely cover that.
Yeah, they're wow, that's actually the money line has gone down. So the money line was at 210 yesterday. Now it's at -190. I think they should cover that. Yeah. If you want to hedge your bets a little bit, I would definitely think about taking 2 games to kick off at the same time. That would be a good teaser. Teaser meaning 6 points would be take Michigan down to a +1 and take the Gators down to a -13. Because I do think Florida wins by 2 touchdowns. 19 might get a little iffy on a backdoor cover.
Yeah.
That's anyways, what's your one big thing that's going to happen today?
I think Clemson, I think they're kind of going to be exposed to the general public. I think they already are to an extent. I think most people know that Clemson is not the same team they were in the past, or at least this year they're not. But I think they're going to etch out or even lose maybe today. But I really think Clemson will be kind of looked upon as not really the top dog in the ACC, or maybe not, or not one of the top dogs in college football this year. That's what I'll say.
I was going to say that originally my one big thing was that I was going to predict the NC State upset, but since you went that direction, I'll go somewhere else. I think one big thing that'll happen, Michigan will at least get a scare. I don't 20.5 points. That's a pretty big spread to sit here and stand up on the table and say that there's going to be an upset. But I think they'll at least get a scare. But I believe my one big thing that's going to happen is going to happen early on. I think Wisconsin's going to mash Notre Dame. I think they're going to – Notre Dame is going to find out why Wisconsin got rid of Jack Cohn.
I'm really I'm hoping they do, because I'm sick of seeing Notre Dame be ranked so high after etching out very bad close wins against teams that they should have blown out. Tired of it.
I will be shocked if Notre Dame wins today.
Yeah, I will too.
I think it'll be a low-scoring game-ish that Wisconsin has in the bag by halfway through the fourth quarter. Basically like a 2-touchdown win. Something where you're just like, Notre Dame's not coming back from this.
Yeah.
And if Wisconsin is going to get back into the conversation of the playoffs, they better win, and they better win, I think, in convincing fashion. I think if they eke it out, it'll help them to a degree. But looking at the rankings right now, Wisconsin's 18th. I think that's a little ridiculous. They lost to Penn State in a really close ball game.
Mm-hmm.
Wisconsin, now granted, they've only played 2 games. That's got something to do with it. Wisconsin should be ranked a little higher than 18th in the country.
Yeah, I think being 1-1 kind of puts them at that point. But I think if they win today, and I think if they win in convincing fashion, they'll rise up a little bit.
They win today, that could be the one big thing, is that Wisconsin could catapult into the top 10.
Possibly. It'd have to be a pretty big win, though, I'd say, to be in the top 10.
If certain things fall, I don't know. I mean, because
I'm hoping to see Florida jump in the top 10 after today, or well, whenever they.
But if Wisconsin wins, their resume is more impressive. So,
yeah,
to me, you put Wisconsin above Florida, because Florida hasn't beaten anybody, and they win today. They still haven't beaten anybody. They had a close loss, but I don't believe in giving high rankings to moral victories.
That's fair. Yeah.
But you're probably right. Just from the SEC bias, it would probably go Florida's direction. If Michigan,
I think it's safe to say I think Florida is a top 10 team in the country, but it's hard to put a team.
Maybe because they didn't look good the first 2 games. They looked very good in the third game, but maybe it really depends on. Well, obviously, the rest of the season will the proof will be in the pudding.
Yeah.
But if they don't beat Georgia, and they have a cupcake schedule, so they don't really have any other big matchups left.
We have a tough little stretch, I think, against LSU, Georgia, and A&M. But
LSU sucks.
Yeah,
bad.
It is. The only problem with that, though, is
here's your
normally,
schedule.
If we were playing at home, I would say differently.
They have a tough schedule. Here's your schedule.
No, I'm not saying they have a tough schedule. I say they have one little iffy.
Tennessee, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, LSU, Georgia, South Carolina, Samford, Missouri, and Florida State. They have one tough game.
I don't know why I mixed. You know what? I was mixing up the A&M game. We have them next year.
That's next season.
We have an LSU, Georgia,
you might have a
and
tough
stretch
schedule
next year. Yeah.
Next season, you might have a tough schedule. This year, you're going to have to run the table and win the SEC championship game to have a chance to get into one.
And I know LSU sucks, but I'm pretty scared of playing in Death Valley.
Yeah, but still, they suck, and a close loss is going to drop you in the polls.
Yeah.
So if you don't,
I would like to. I think as long as we get through Georgia, there's no reason we shouldn't run the table for the rest of the regular season. And that'll kind of leave it up to the SEC championship.
Right. Like I said, it's a cupcake schedule. The only 2 games when we talked about this at the beginning of the year, we looked at it like the only 2 teams on the schedule that are actually good are Georgia and Alabama, and they're really good. Yeah. But outside of that, you're basically playing a Big West Conference schedule. You couldn't lay out an easier SEC road than what Florida has. But if they lose to a Kentucky or have a close win against Kentucky or Tennessee or whatever, then the perception will change. So they're not just have to win. They've got to blow these teams out is my point. And I'm not trashing Florida. I think Florida's a pretty good football team. But the problem is, just like Clemson, you've got a loss on your resume now. How are you going to get yourself back in there? You got to run the table, including winning your conference championship game, because you don't have other things on your resume where you're like, oh, well, we played Arkansas this year and we played Auburn. You're not playing any of those teams out west. You play Alabama and then LSU, but and it's no fault of Florida, but LSU is terrible this year.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the real stretch there is what they can do there. What's your
Actually, a team that has a stupid easy schedule is Oklahoma.
Well,
my goodness, that's unbelievable.
That's their conference.
I mean, they just have a free path to the playoffs, which is stupid, but
I mean, that's essentially what a lot of teams in the SEC do. They'll play, especially the ones in the SEC East. They'll play the SEC East and claim that they're in this tough conference, and they're like, they're not in a tough conference. You're in a conference that has a tough division. You're not in that division.
Yeah.
Because if you're Georgia or Florida and you look at their out of conference schedule,
no, it's not hard at all.
No, Georgia and Florida are infamously known for not playing out of conference. The only out of conference game Florida has ever played, and it's because it's state law, is Florida State. When's the last time you remember Florida really taking on a big name outside the conference? They don't do it. They play FIU, St. Mary's of the South.
Played Michigan, if I'm not mistaken. No,
that was a bowl game.
I thought we had one at the beginning of one year.
They might have, but that's not normal. I remember them playing Michigan in a bowl game. They might have played. You know what? They might have played them in a kickoff classic, but it's very rare. It's very rare. It might have been actually the year that might have been 2018, the year that Florida State played Alabama. I feel like it was like a rematch or something. But anyways, regardless, Florida the fact that you can think about and go, I think that one time, yeah, exactly that one time. I've watched Florida football my entire life. They don't play anyone out of conference. Georgia plays nobody out of conference. When was the last time you remember Georgia play? And so they'll make a big deal because Georgia's playing Alabama this year. But my God, that's a conference game. They don't play anyone out of conference. And so it's, it is what it is. This year, conversely, you look at Florida State, they play Florida and they played Notre Dame out of conference. Yeah. You'll never see Florida do that. They're allergic to it. And Georgia's the same way, which I've always said, and Tony has agreed with me from time to time on this till he, digs in with his orange and blue blood. And I go, all right, fair enough. But to me, if I'm a fan, I would get extremely bored watching a team that plays a garbage schedule every year. So if you're an Oklahoma fan, if you're a Georgia fan, if you're a Florida fan, you only got a few games to get up for every year. And other than that, it's kind of dull. And I'm
with you to an extent. I agree that you want to have like some entertaining, clash of big teams going at it. But at the same time, you don't want your team to have a loaded schedule and, just not be successful.
You at least want 4 or 5 really fun games every year, and you don't get that if you're a Gator or you're a Bulldog or you're a Sooner fan. Over the last 30 to 40 years, you do not have that. It does not happen. Oklahoma will play some games out of conference. I don't believe they have one this year, but they're I remember them playing Ohio State.
Same for Alabama, no?
Alabama does not play anyone out of
conference. They don't play any big dogs really.
Now they started doing it recently with Nick Saban. So for instance, it's not his fault that Miami's terrible. He did play Miami Hurricanes. He played Florida State. He played Florida State in 2018 when FSU wasn't that far removed from a national championship. So he has played some big games. It's usually the first game of the season. He won't play it in the middle of the year. You won't catch an Alabama-Penn State clash in the middle of October, right? But he's willing to play a big dog at the beginning of the year, realizing that if he loses, that he still has the entire season to make up for that. But at least they do that. And that has been my point why they need to go. They need to take the bowl games, put them in August, late August, early September, invite teams off of how good you think they're going to be. Whatever. It is what it is. Kids will actually play in these bowl games. We'll actually get to see out of conference games. It'll get you excited for the season. And then you've got your entire season to be able to make up for the fact that you might have lost that first game, especially when we go and we expand the playoffs to 8 teams or 16, 12, whatever they decide to do. no one's going to watch these bowl games anymore. They're going to be done.
Mm-hmm.
You're a young man. You're kind of new to this. You don't remember when bowl games were important, like super important. And so I would say that the cutoff is around your generation, where if you're going to get your generation to watch college football bowl game, it's got to be at the beginning of the season, where it's like a really fun, almost exhibition atmosphere, but it could have some pay some dividends at the end of the season. When, let's say, Florida is, in the eyes of the voters, regular season, they're neck and neck with Oklahoma because Oklahoma dropped a game somewhere along the way, right? And then everyone's like, should Oklahoma or Florida get in? And everyone goes, what about that bowl game where Florida took down Southern Cal and Oklahoma struggled against Clemson or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I think there could be a lot of fun. It'd be a lot of fun. And even the lower teams, the lower bit, like the MTSUs and whatnot, man, their fan bases would be rabid to jump out there and go to a bowl game. And I say build the whole thing around Labor Day weekend so that the family can go to a game, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, it'd be cool. I kind of like that idea.
They're going to have to do something, because if they go to 12-team playoff, 18, whatever it is, the bowl games, as bad as it is now, these NIL deals, you think these kids are going to go out there and play in the Liberty Bowl? Heck no. What's your walk-off for the day, sir?
I'm going to say, just because I'm watching it and because, well, it's not really a rivalry, but it is to me, just because of all the Tennessee people I'm surrounded by. But I'm going to say Florida, Tennessee, Tennessee, Florida, since it's in Gainesville. That is at, I believe, it's a 6 Central Time game. It shouldn't be close, but I'm excited to see. I'm hoping to see Anthony Richardson get snaps if he's healthy enough to go. If not, I'm hoping to see an improved game from Emory Jones and company.
I don't think y'all are going to have an issue. My walk-off for the day is, I'm excited to watch a lot of things, and Florida State football isn't one of them. I'm dreading it. I'm looking, going, oh, God, here we go. I'm going to watch it. I'll be a fan. But at that same time, Arkansas is playing Texas A&M. And at that same time, Clemson is playing NC State. You take a wild guess what game is going to be muted. It's going to be the Florida State game. I'm not going to listen to probably Beth Mowins. I don't know who's doing the broadcast, but whoever, what terrible broadcasting that they get us stuck with, because ever since we've gone downhill, we get stuck with garbage. I'm not listening to that when I could be listening to Brad Nessler over on CBS, or I can be listening to, I don't know who will be doing the ABC game, but it won't be Beth Mowins, I don't think. So that's my walk-off. And tonight, Braves Padres 7:15 first pitch. We'll have the game right here. Very good viewership so far on these play-by-play games. So looking forward to tonight's broadcast. For the whole gang, including Bobby, who's sitting right here with us, I'm Mac McGee, and we will see you next week on Dixie Football Nation. If Florida were to lose, I'm just curious, would the Gator fan base overreact and start? I know he wouldn't get fired, but would they overreact and start giving him heat?
Look, I'm going to be honest, and it's a flaw of mine. I'm a pretty big overreactor. Last week after that first quarter, with Anthony Richardson just watching from the sidelines as we were down 21-3, I was like, man, this Mullen is not the guy I was thinking. I'm going to be honest. I was a victim of overreaction there.
Careful what you wish for, because Mullen could be headed to Southern Cal if he has a good season.
Who knows? Maybe Urban's going to start grabbing at his heart and then head over to USC. Who knows?
They're definitely going to kick the tires. That's for sure.
On who, Urban?
No, on Mullen if he continues to have a good year, because Southern Cal believes that they can bring anyone out of anywhere. Southern Cal is like a Notre Dame or an Alabama. They believe, and honestly, Southern Cal, Notre Dame, Alabama are probably the 3 top football jobs in all of college football. across the board. Just talking about for money, along with Texas, talking about money, being able to have the facilities, et cetera, et cetera. Now, it's what you do with that job. And we've all seen what Nick Saban and Brian Kelly have done with the job. And then we've also seen what numerous people have not done with that job at Southern Cal and Texas. But they believe they can get whoever they want. I don't know if he's a culture fit. He probably isn't. But there will still be those rumors that Mullen could be headed to Southern Cal if he wins.
Well, there was rumors about over the offseason about him potentially being an NFL coach.
Mullen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of it.
That's not
and I wasn't terribly worried because I didn't think it was a high likelihood, but apparently the Jets had him in for an interview or something. But I wasn't really anticipating
let me
anything
put it this way. I wouldn't put anything past the Jets because they're pretty stupid, but Mullen is not a college football coach. Just like the way Urban Meyer's Mullen is not an NFL coach. Just like
I was going to say, well, he's probably not an NFL coach either.
But Urban Meyer had the national championships to be able to give it a try, and someone was going to give him a shot, and Jacksonville was desperate. But Mullen,
I wouldn't say so far it looks terribly good for Urban.
I think for Mullen to be in a good position to go to the NFL, he'd have to win at least one national championship.
Yeah.
His style, I would just be shocked. The only one that I could see possibly coming after him because of his relationship with Dak Prescott would be Jerry Jones going and trying to grab him, saying
that makes sense.
If he had a bad year as far as offensively, and Dak said, "Look, I really like my old college coach," maybe that, but that's a huge stretch.
Yeah, that's if they fire McCarthy.
Jerry Jones being an Arkansas Razorback alum, he's more likely to go grab that guy if he goes out and wins the SWC.
Ultimately, all in all, I'm pretty. If I was an NFL, I am an NFL fan, but if my team was hiring a college coach, I would not be too happy. And the Cardinals did, and I haven't been too happy with them so far. So,
is this the same Cardinals team that's 2-0 that's most likely going to be 3-0?
Yeah, it is.
Just can't keep you happy, man.
I can't be happy with how we played last week. I can't. We did not look good. We looked all right, but
we'll talk about it tomorrow. But I think Minnesota is going to upset Seattle.
I hope so. That'd be a rough start for Seattle, and I always like that. So.
All right, brother. We'll see you tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern. For all the guys, Mac McGee here with Dixie Football Nation on the